Thanks everyone for being here. Today we are diving into a complex and evolving situation that is the conflict in Gaza and how the international accountability mechanisms are responding to the evolving situation. We will explore what's happening on the ground, what global institutions are saying, and what, if anything, could actually stop the operations in Gaza. A snapshot of where things are at the moment as of September. Operations in Gaza are still ongoing. The civilian toll is staggering, and the humanitarian crisis is worsening, and it's beyond belief. There has been calls for ceasefire, but mostly we've seen short pauses, nothing lasting. Diplomatically, the US continues to support Israel, though tensions are arising between Netanyahu and Trump, especially around the aid access and the way they are targeting people in Gaza. Globally, Israel is facing deeper isolation, and the United Nations votes are dwindling. EU criticism is increasing, and there's also a strong criticism from the global south. The public opinion is shifting as well. In the US, support is declining, especially among younger and more progressive groups. There is increase in cultural boycotts, and recognition of Palestine is increasing, and is also beginning to reshape the narrative as we proceed in this situation and operation that's unfolding in Gaza. Now that the UN Commission of Inquiry met this week, and the inquiry has concluded that Israel is actually committing genocide in Gaza, which is the first in the history of UN bodies to have made that call against Israel. They based it on the scale of harm and deprivation and the rhetoric from officials in Israel. However, like you can expect, Israel is rejecting these claims outright, and they say that it's actually politically motivated. We also have to bear in mind that this outcome is not a court ruling. However, it carries significant political and moral weight, which Israel has been trying to maintain an image through use of extensive propaganda. Now, ICJ, you remember the South Africa versus Israel, the International Court of Justice, which was back in January 2024, they ordered Israel to prevent any genocidal acts, to allow aid, and to preserve any evidence. Then in May, they added further measures which were specifically addressing actions in Rafah. It's important to also note that the ICJ hasn't declared genocide is occurring, but they found that the claims of genocide were quite plausible enough to issue the measures, which is significant, and Israel is expected to comply. However, ICJ does not have any enforcement power to be able to enforce this ruling. And then with the ICC, in November last year, they issued arrest warrants for Bibi and the ex-defense minister Galland for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. As it has been noted that there has been starvation that has been used as a mode of warfare, and however, there is no genocide charges yet, and the legal process is ongoing. But from my 2 cents, I can see it that very soon ICC might be ruling genocide, and Israel is appealing the ruling. However, if Israeli officials travel to any 120 ICC member states, they might find themselves arrested. However, if that member state is just ignores the ICC warranty, they will just walk scot-free. So, will this pressure mount up to deter Israel? I'll say no, because with all this pressure, the operation still continues in Gaza, and the ICJ and Commission of Inquiry does lack the enforcement powers. The ICC relies heavily on the member states, the 120 member states, and the UN Security Council is toothless, because you see that United States always vetoes any action against Israel, and on top of that, Israel frames its action as self-defense against Hamas, which further complicates the legal proceedings, especially when trying to prove genocidal intent. However, on the flip side, from my 2 cents as an educated political analyst, there has been a lot of comments online and on media from Israeli officials that can prove genocidal intent. Okay. Now let's explore if there are any pathways that can actually stop or contain this operation that is happening in Gaza. The one most effective action that we've seen historically is the work that the UN peacekeepers have been doing in other regions where there has been genocide happening. But in this situation with Israel, the UN peacekeeping mission will not likely to go ahead, because it requires United Nations Security Council approval and consent from key players, of which we all know that United States will always veto the action against Israel, which will mean that the peacekeeping mission cannot go ahead, because there will be no approval from the United Nations Security Council. The second option is a joint Arab force, possibly involving the Palestinian Authority and Egypt. This one is more feasible if they pull their weight all together. If there is involvement of countries like Qatar, Yemen, Saudi Arabia to form a coalition military force. However, there's still some drawbacks that they will still need Israeli cooperation and a strong diplomatic guarantee. But this one is a more feasible and more practical way, of which I am quite surprised why the hell this has not happened yet, because what's happening in Gaza is it's horrific, and it's giving us sleepless nights and nightmares. Then the third option would be ceasefire monitoring and humanitarian access. That can be through air and sea corridors, as well as prisoner exchanges and demining. This could work if it is backed by sanctions and pressure from especially United States. If United States withdraws their support of the Israeli action, then this will carry a little bit more weight. However, as the situation stands, I don't envisage that happening anytime soon, because whatever politics happening behind closed doors is freaking Donald Trump and his cohorts, that they will not be able to lift a finger against Israel. And then finally, one of the ways that this can be mitigated is through an arms embargo and targeted sanctions, which I'm suspecting it's underway with some of the countries, and these could increase the pressure, but it can only work if it's widely adopted and it's properly enforced. Looking ahead, so what to watch next in the next 3 to 6 months. I'm anticipating that there will be some further activities in the ICJ. So we'll need to watch for the ICJ compliance reports and any new measures that the ICJ might bring forward. And also the ICC may expand its charges, which will further put pressure on Israeli authorities. And we also have to keep an eye on some of the humanitarian indicators, like the famine risk and access to aid, which will be quite critical. And diplomatically, we may see more countries recognizing Palestine, as they have already started to signal, and we might see more sanctions and more cultural boycotts. Like of recent, there's been some talk of pressuring Eurovision to boycott Israel. It's a fast-moving situation at this stage, with a lot of legal, political, and humanitarian dimensions that can go beyond a comprehension of a regular, uneducated politician like. Right, a quick overview. We've covered what's happening on the ground, the operations in Gaza, and the diplomacy around what's happening, the United Nations current outcome of say confirming that there is genocide happening in Gaza, as well as the court findings from last year that the Israeli officials are committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. And we've identified pressure points which can help and other potential pathways for change. The key takeaway is accountability mechanisms are in place and are active. However, the enforcement is quite limited because the ICC and ICJ, they don't have the enforcement power. They rely on member states to act on the arrest warrants. And then there is also a limited political will from major powers, which if there is any change in that, it will shape what happens next. So now for those who want to explore further, I have put out a handout in the description. There's a link, you can download that. It's worth reviewing all the UN reports and media coverage and legal documents that I have used to collate this discussion. And now let's open it up for discussion. What's your take on the situation? Do you think international accountability is working or is failing? Share your thoughts in the comments and or in the discussion thread if you are not watching this on YouTube. What do you believe could actually shift the course of events?